Big old shout out to our friends over at Game Press for providing us a review copy of this game for review purposes. Thanks, gang. Hello, this is Tim at Wembembo on everything, and I am back with another short episode of DLC. Pools is an uncomfortable game. It's a game where you roam seemingly endless series of hall and waterways trying to find whatever it is that progress looks like. This could be anything from stairs going down to a door you haven't seen before, an illusionary wall, or diving off a diving board seemingly into the abyss. Developed by Tensori, and it's their only game to date and released on May 31st, 2024, Pools is a liminal space horror. For those who don't know what liminal space is, it's the idea of being in a place that feels familiar, almost nostalgic, but not quite right. It's often described as a place of transition. You'll see things like the back rooms, or whatever referred to as a liminal space. Pools does something really clever that I have not seen a horror game do in years. It lets the imagination of the player fill in the blanks. Out of the 7 chapters, one of which is a bonus, certainly for the first 3 chapters, I felt the need to be constantly looking over my shoulder. There's no soundtrack, the soundscape is minimal, only playing what it needs to when it needs to, but as a result of the game's execution, you end up being paranoid about what could be around any given corner. I can distinctly remember the first level encountering a large rubber duck, the first I had seen in the game. There wasn't anything remarkable about the duck. It had a regular rubber duck face, but it was so out of place with everything I'd experienced so far that it felt like the devs were just screwing with me. I rounded a corner to try and see what was behind the duck without having to touch it, just in case it did do something. And I found the duck had slightly turned towards me. And so I went back around to the side I had originally come from, to find the duck still in its now new resting place. I had worked out that the water displacement from me moving through water had shifted the duck's position, but the game had gotten me in such a paranoid state that I was convinced that the duck was going to do something. Turns out it did nothing. My imagination filled in the blanks. There's a few bizarre and unsettling things to encounter in Pool, and I think it's to the game's benefit. It makes these moments that would be mundane in other games really prominent in this one. I can remember seeing a ladder that led into a hole that was underwater, a weird sight on its own, but what made it stranger was there was some hands on the ladder that weren't mine. I turned away for about a second, and when I looked back, the hands were gone. I never found out who they belonged to, but I think that added to a sense of this game's mystery. It added to the feeling of I was being messed with. Pool's environments are really simple. They're just tiled and sometimes wooden hallways, but where it really shines is its water effects and lighting effects. The team behind Pools makes really effective use of lighting throughout this whole experience, making the player wary of some corridors and more trusting of others, for better or for worse. What Pools lacks in creatures or monsters or even jump scares, it makes up for in its atmosphere, and the first few chapters were really refreshing as a horror experience, especially when we seem to be in a bit of an age of jump scares dominating the horror scene. There's a distinct difference, in my opinion, between scary and startling. Modern horror games are more leaning into startling. Pools is scary. I've noted previously in this review that the early chapters are the highlight for me because I think up to about chapter 4, I was uncomfortable. From chapter 4 onwards, I was a bit too familiar with how everything was going to go. I knew I wasn't going to get jump scared. I knew that this game was a case of wandering around corridors, making notes of landmarks and looking for things that you've never seen before. Generally speaking in Pools, if it's weird looking, you're probably supposed to go and check it out. I made the experience drag on a little bit in my opinion, but equally I don't know what else the devs could have done. If they cut out the second half of the game, the price wouldn't be worth it. But if they added stuff to the second half of the game, it would remove the thing that makes Pools unique, the player's imagination. It's a really tough position to be in, and I don't know that there's a single right answer. Would I recommend pools? Yes, absolutely. But do yourself a favour if you're going to play it. Once you're done with a chapter or two, turn the game off. Put the controller down for a few days and come back to it later. I played this whole thing in one session and it took me a little over 2 hours to do. But I think the game really benefits from taking a break between its chapters. This has been Tim, at Wembembo and everything, and I'll see you next time.